stories.
I gotta get
Remind myself. It's really amazing what you could say on YouTube, but not say on YouTube. It's quite possibly one of the most fascinating things in the world. But give me 1 second, and we are live on YouTube. Yes, sir. You need to. We are live on YouTube, Ben.
Glenn.
And there is Ben Stein.
And where's Glenn?
And I want to welcome everybody to the world according to the man, the myth, the legend.
Judah, where's Glenn?
I don't know, Ben. And I don't know where Glenn is. And it's one of the history's mysteries. And there he is, the man.
Oh, there he is on his boat. Hello, Remso. How are you feeling, my dear friend?
I'm doing quite well, Ben. Great to be back.
Ben, if you could tilt your computer screen a little backwards, so that way we could get the full-on Ben, that would be perfect. Okay, I want to welcome everybody again to the world according to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. I want to thank everybody that's listening and watching in our YouTube chat. I want to remind everybody to please download our podcast. We had our best podcast week ever. And don't forget to give those 5-star reviews. You know, and I want to tell you something, Remso, funnily enough, somebody gave like one of those, you ever see like somebody gives a perfect review written wise and they give you 4 stars? And it's like, it's like that scene from Reservoir Dogs. Like, what do I need to get a 5? Like, what did we need extra to get that 5? But, you know, we thank you nonetheless.
It's the tipping philosophy.
Everything.
And of course, I want to remind people, Rock Breath, thank you so much. We'll be giving you the information for our new Rumble stuff. We will be rumbling, rumble on. And we are joined tonight by the simplelife.com founder, podcaster extraordinaire. They used to be Remso, but both of your podcaster extraordinaires. And of course, living off the grid specialist, Gary Collins. You look great as always, Gary. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I gave you a great thing. That's the best I got. Thank you. And of course, welcome back. We missed you sorely. Remso, the cat Martinez is back. Welcome back, Remso.
It's great
Remind
to be
me
back.
of why he's called the cat.
Because he has cats.
Oh. Okay.
It's sort of
Remso,
like, you know, like John, like when I was getting sober, John the bartender, he called him John the bartender because he was a bartender. But of course, this show wouldn't be complete without lawyer, entertainer, writer, saint, sinner, lover,
economist,
mathematician,
doctor,
statistician.
doctor.
But do you take Medicaid?
No, I don't take any insurance.
And what type of medicine do you practice?
I practice brain surgery.
That's amazing. I do too. It's
that is amazing.
Not easy. You cannot drink if you're going to do brain surgery, my friend. You cannot drink.
But of course,
I drink through the whole surgery.
You would drink through the whole. Wait, that's Diet Coke or something. That's not alcohol.
America's teacher, Benjamin Jeremy Stein, and right off the bat, we posted today. There's a famous NBA line by a famous NBA player. His name was Rasheed Wallace, and he had a line. He got ejected from the game for this. Ben. This was when you could still watch the NBA, and He was an old school ball player. And there was a time when he fouled somebody, or he didn't think it was a foul, and the person missed the foul shot, and he said, "Ball don't lie." And
that's very good.
It's become this amazing quote, an amazing. It's a great quote, and it's been used for years. And we were posting for the show today. I was thinking about numbers don't lie. Okay, so if you look throughout,
please, you've come to the right man.
No, but just hear me out for a second. But if you look throughout every form of media, from sports to television, to the Oscars, to Joe Biden's speech last night, ball don't lie. People, Ben, are not watching this virtuous thing they're putting upon us. So the reason I'm bringing this up is, Ben, I think this does offer us hope.
Well, I think we have hope in many, many different directions. First of all, let's not forget, every day we wake up, it's changing adversely, but we are still living in the greatest country in the world. We're unbelievably blessed. Every day we wake up in the United States of America is a blessing by the Lord God. That's one. Two, the fact that the Republicans got, and many of my other panelists and friends have commented, we got a hell of a lot of votes in the last election. It was not as if nobody voted for our side of the aisle. Next, we have people of great intelligence still writing and talking for us, and many of them appear on this show 3 times a week. I don't think we're without hope at all. I flew back from Charlotte, North Carolina to LAX last night, and I felt like I was in an East Bloc country. I mean, we were being ordered around constantly, from the ticket desk to the check-in, to the next phase of the check-in, to the next phase of the check-in, down the hall. Everywhere we went, people were ordering us around. And I thought and then you get on a plane, they're ordering you around. It's not America as I know it, where you're ordered around from the moment you wake up till the moment you leave. But I think we have a chance to perhaps make progress in righting that wrong.
No, but the bigger point I'm trying to make is, and I agree with you 100%, is this culture that they think they're forcing on us, right? There is a majority and they're silent, and we've discussed this. The question is, how the hell do we get those people to not be silent when they're so scared of losing their livelihoods, of losing friendships? How do we change that dialogue? Because and I don't know where to start on that one, but because, sorry?
Remzo, you're a cat. Go ahead, tell us.
I'm trying to figure that out myself, Ben. It's a
great. May I tell you a starting point? And I think Gary and I have talked about this before. When the Fuhrer was starting out, the National Socialist Party had, 20, 30 members. They totally faked it about how many members they had. But the members they had were brawling, beer-drinking thugs who would frighten other people and would get people to join up and join their rallies by telling them they'd be beaten up if they didn't. Something like that is happening on the Democrat side of the aisle. And it's a very bad, scary thing. But we can still stand up to them. There are not enough of them in Black Lives Matter and in Antifa to beat us all up. And at some point, some of us will resist. But I think, if I may say this, they are using a combination of brute force and just power of the media. Yeah, I'm going to go on for another couple of seconds because I'm an old man and I might not live very much longer. But the Black population of this country is 13 or 14%, very roughly. Of them, most of them are just ordinary citizens like you or me or anyone else. But there's a tiny majority of them, minority of them, who are incredibly active and energetic and lively. They are joined by a group of very devout and hardworking Marxists. And they managed to control the whole country. This very small minority of a small minority managed to control the whole party. But that's how it was in Nazi Germany. That's how it was with the Bolsheviks. The Bolsheviks started out with a few thousand people, wound up controlling the largest country in the world.
So you don't have hope. But Remzo, why don't you?
No, I do have hope, because we are aware of the historical precedent and know enough to fight back.
Remzo.
There was a town in Arizona, I think about a week ago. I think it was called Valencia, somewhere outside of Phoenix, I think. And what happened was the local school board walked in for their monthly meeting, and a whole crowd of parents came in. Hundreds of parents came in. And they were basically demanding that, you had time to go ahead and install critical race theory into the new program, but none of your Blackboard system works. Your half a week of in-person learning doesn't work. Your priorities are all skewed. You people are absolutely terrible. So the school board, who's been hounded for almost a year, actually went ahead and quit, and they all walked out. So all the parents there held an impromptu election, and they elected a new school board overnight, and they went ahead and brought everything back to where it was about a year ago. They threw out the new curriculum. They're going ahead and they're trying to figure out how to do in-person learning. But you see, that's one case. There was a video in the county next to me in Loudoun County, Virginia, that went viral article through Breitbart and The Blaze about 6-7 months ago, and it was almost of a different story. You had parents show up, you had the entire school board there, and the parents are yelling, "Get our kids back in school, open it back up, it's been too long," and they're all screaming at these school board members. And what do the school board members do? They sit there and smile, because at the end of the day, those people can show up and yell and scream and shout all they want, but they don't show up for elections. Now, what happened in Arizona was a miracle almost. They just decided to quit, and now there's a new group of parents there. They're actually trying to do well for the community. But throughout the country, we're seeing these incidents where conservatives always show up a day late and a dollar short. They're late to the dance.
That's their motto. I happen to agree, Gary Collins.
100% agree. Well, I joined the Knights Templar. It's still around. So I'm doing my own duty to do crusades and all kinds of good stuff. But no, honestly, I agree. And if parents pulled their kids, sorry, I've been watching a lot of history.
I like that.
If these parents pulled their kids out of school, we have a lot of people right now who also don't have jobs. You know what? If the parents pull these kids out and start teaching and create their own education system, I'm a big civil disobedience guy. You know what? If the school system sucks and they're not teaching your kids what they need to be teaching them, people go, well, they're not certified, this or that. What's a certified kid? A dumbass. So what does it matter? You know, when that kid goes out into the real world, long as they know what the hell they're doing and how to act, that education doesn't mean shit. So why worry about that stuff? Why worry about standardized tests? Why worry about getting into some stupid overpriced college? Teach your kids how to act like a proper human being, take it over, pull them out of the school, take the tax dollars away, and guess what? They'll change their tune. They'll start going, oh, well, wait a second. We don't have enough kids enrolled. I can't go on vacation in Florida, even though I'm in New York and I'm supposed to be teaching these kids online. Oh, shit. I'm going to have to go back to work. Honestly, that's what you do. Just go, if you're not playing by the rules, we're not playing by the rules. We'll meet your bullshit with our bullshit, and let's see who wins.
But the kids are in the middle of this contest, and I don't want them walking away with no education at all. What I would like to see is a real education, education. I mean, education where children are taught something. I had the incredible privilege, genuinely incredible privilege, of this week of spending time with a very, 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 very wonderful young girl who's very closely related to me in South Carolina. And she's terribly smart, terribly, terribly polite. And she's really not being taught all she should be taught, but she could be taught. I think we have to start with teaching these kids even at a very, very young age. And if the parents want to set up adjunct schools, maybe they should do that. I, for many years, was an adjunct at Pepperdine, and Pepperdine's a fine, fine school. And I think the kids learned, if I may say so, at least as much from me as from their regular teachers. Let's set up adjuncts at these various universities.
No, you've all raised great points. Sorry, Gary, go ahead.
Well, no, that's a great idea. But the only way you're going to change these school systems is you have to hit them in the wallet. These local school systems, you pull their enrollment and they don't have enough kids in class and they start losing their funding, they'll start changing their tune really quick. Because even the union, if their union is going to suffer because they're not going to be getting enough dues, because now you don't have enough teachers, now you don't have enough students. It's kind of a long-term play. But like I said, our kids aren't getting educated for the most part anyway today. So what's the difference? Give them the life skills.
I like that phrase, long-term. You know, I've said this before and I'll say it again. When the Germans invaded France in 1940, and they pushed the French back very, very fast. Although the French fought well, it's a total lie that they just gave up and ran away. The French are very brave people. The defeatists and the turncoats in France said, well, we surrender, the Germans are superior. But Charles de Gaulle, who had his problems, no doubt about that, said, he broadcast from London, my fellow French, we face a prolonged struggle. He didn't say I give up. He said we face a prolonged struggle. A very, very smart friend of mine named Eric Alter taught me that probably 40 years ago. Brilliant, brilliant comment. I would like to see us acknowledge it's going to be a prolonged struggle, as Martin Luther King said the night before he was killed, I may not get there with you, but because I'm quite old, but we are going to get there if we keep struggling. Our ideas are so right. They so rightly fit in with the human spirit. If we pursue them, we will not fail.
Brilliantly said. And on that note, if you just tuned in, Remzo, please tell everybody where they could find us.
Folks, go ahead and do yourself a favor. Subscribe to Ben's newsletter so you never miss anything from the show and more. You can find that at benstein.substack.com. That's benstein.substack.com. And while you're here, hit the subscribe bell so that way you never miss an episode when we go live. And if you can't think it gets better, it does. You can go ahead and subscribe to the audio version of the show, aired each day after this goes live on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, and wherever podcasts are available on Al Gore's amazing internet. That's Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play. You know how to find it. Go out and do it.
And of course, let's not forget the Rumble. We're rumbling on. And I want to welcome
What's
everybody.
the channel? The channel's the same, right?
It's the World According to Ben Stein, or type in Ben Stein, search Ben Stein or the World According to Ben Stein, and you will see the subscribers subscribe. We need the rumbles over there. So thank you. You've been rumbling away at paces that I didn't even expect. So we are seriously humbled and honored. So even if you watch us there, go subscribe to us there. Subscribe to us everywhere is the point. Welcome back to the World According to Ben Stein. And you guys have all raised amazing points. Obviously, the numbers don't prove that their theories people are accepting of their theories. That we know. We could look at the numbers. We could Ben Stein, we could look at the stats and the math of their numbers and say people don't want to be inundated with woke, with cancel.
I'm sorry, inundated with what? Woke?
With woke culture, with cancel culture, with leftist culture. People don't want to be inundated with that. The question I have, and I will ask this again, is how do we get the silent majority to not be terrified? Now, this week, I want to say, was a terrifying week for many. My mother, my sister called me up on the phone. We're originally from New York. We're all New Yorkers. And our mayor, America's mayor, had his home raided and or his business raided. And it terrified them. It terrified them that Rudy Giuliani had his offices raided. Trump's former lawyer, and I believe so did Joe DeGenevi's offices also got raided. And Ben, that is frightening stuff.
That is incredibly frightening stuff. The connection between a lawyer and his client or her client is vital. Confidentiality between them is vital. The need of every defendant to have strong counsel and strong defense, competent, capable defense is vital. The idea of bullying and terrorizing the counsel for the president of the United States is just breathtakingly bad. I had and have a very smart relative in my family who is a big pro-Biden person, and she's a terribly, terribly smart woman. And I suspect even she, as an incredibly smart woman, would be overwhelmed with shock at the idea that you can send in FBI agents at 6 a.m. to your lawyers, to your house, and raid it over something we don't even know for sure what it was over. While meanwhile, Hunter Biden is running around loose, going to parties, and the data about his wrongdoing is extremely voluminous. We're now using the FBI as the stormtroopers of the Biden administration, but the FBI has been the stormtroopers of the left for some time now, I'm sorry to say. Although I think that my respect for the ordinary FBI agent is absolutely boundless.
And I think people on the right are still waiting for Lindsey Graham to indict or to bring in front of the Senate Hunter Biden. 3 years of a promise on Sean Hannity that was never actualized. And I think, Gary Collins, that's what frustrates people on the right or conservatives or normal people so much is they see, listen, I'm not the biggest Roger Stone fan in the world, but to have an assault team at this man's house at 6 a.m.
They sent more people after Roger Stone than they did to capture Osama bin Laden.
It's incredible. It's unbelievable. It's incredible. You're so right. Why usually these things are handled through a person's lawyer. Why didn't they just send a subpoena to the lawyer? I mean, I am a lawyer. I was a trial lawyer for a considerable period of time. When we wanted documents, we just sent a letter specifying the kinds of documents we wanted to the defendant's attorneys. And we never had a problem getting full full delivery of the documents we wanted. And I think that would be true of most lawyers. They just send a letter or if necessary, a subpoena. You don't need to break into a guy's house at 6 a.m. That's crazy.
Well, you already raised the point, though, Gary Collins, is to instill fear into Americans that dissent. And Ben, you brought this up yesterday with your Politburo thing, and this would stop something Stalin would understand.
Yes,
is Gary Collins? This is specifically meant to scare the bejesus out of normal Americans.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no other purpose. Sorry, I'm sorry, Gary. I beg your pardon.
Oh, no problem. I've written search warrants. I've executed search warrants. I've done no knocks. I've done 6 a.m.s. I've done subpoenas. And I'll tell you right now, that was purely to instill fear. That's what that was done for. And honestly, from what I understand and what I've heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but they've been trying to turn over the documents that were in the search warrant to DOJ for 2 years now. Wow. They volunteered this material ahead of time and said, we will give it to you. And I was watching a piece where he had 3 hard drives that were copies of Hunter Biden's laptop. And per usually in a search warrant, it's all digital media that you possess that relate to A, B, and C. Well, if that search warrant was written correctly, they should have taken those drives. They did not. They said, no, we will not take those. And they took his word for it that they were Hunter Biden's drives. And they said, no, we're not taking that.
Wow. Wow. Very scary. Very scary. And very scary.
I think legally they're in deep shit because that was
even the FBI agents.
Valid search warrant. 100%.
Yeah. And
from everything.
Well, I think, I'm sorry, Remso, I actually, ever since I heard this story yesterday, I'm dying to know what Remso is going to say about this.
Oh, I'll be completely honest.
Remso, let me preface this. Regardless of your thoughts about Rudy Giuliani.
No, like here's the honest thing. I don't genuinely know much about this story. I didn't know about it until you brought it up. I had to go Google it. And you know, for the most part, this just seems like what we should expect from Biden. The Obama administration did this almost all the time. And I mean, we saw them abuse the FISA courts. We saw them use the IRS to go after people. We saw them use the ATF to go after Gibson's Guitars because the CEO of Gibson Guitars went ahead and donated to Mitt Romney. So they raided the factory because some of the wood was found to have come from a country apparently shouldn't have been coming from to make guitars. I mean, they use the system of the police state in order to go ahead and justify this type of behavior. And I mean, you know, this is one of those situations where it's like, this is what we got. We shouldn't be surprised with it. The new director of the ATF is the man who burned down the Branch Davidians, killing hundreds of women and children and elderly people. And he stood in front of their smoldering bodies and took a photo op to send out with a Christmas card. And while the rest of the world is figuring this out,
Remso, is that really true? That's too horrible to contemplate.
Yes. Wow. The man who was part of the raid at the Branch Davidians, who's in the famous photo holding a rifle and part of the rubble in front of the bodies of smoldering Americans, is now the head of the ATF. He was also a former member of Gabby Giffords' campaign to, you know, end gun violence and things like that. While the rest of America is catching up, thanks to that amazing series on Netflix called Waco, to the fact that this is what the ATF and, you know, the Loretta Lynches of the world and everyone did to the Branch Davidians then. They're now catching up to what really happened. Biden watched that and he said, you know what, let's get the guy that killed all those people after they had already surrendered and attempted to come out because they were afraid to come out because they were afraid that they would be killed, much like many of them had been. I think he went ahead and said, let's go ahead and make this guy the head of it.
Ben Stein, I think the most amusing part of this is he was interviewed today and he said, I had no part in it. I didn't know anything about it. Just like he didn't know anything about Hunter Biden when we have proof that he knew everything about
I have a quick
Biden.
question. Yes. Gary, were you in government during the Waco incident?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Waco, Ruby Ridge, all of it.
Tell us about Ruby Ridge, Gary. I have a home near Ruby Ridge, and I can tell you that was police state through and through.
And having to deal with these, because I was early law enforcement. I may have been in the military during part of it. I'm trying to remember the years. But even us, when we were looking at it, it frightened me because but they spun it. They spun it to where, the compound in Waco with
David Koresh.
Koresh. I had Kardashian in the head.
601.
Yeah, same difference, right? And they made it sound like, it was this evil occult, and they're raping children and women, and don't get me wrong, it was a weird world in there for sure. But to go in and actually raid a place and threaten, and there was a lot of threats going on from the government to them, you just sit there and you're a part of it. And part of the problem was when I was in and at that young of an age, you hear what you kind of want to hear. I thought David Kardashian, maybe, oh, God, yeah.
Oh. I'm sorry. Wait a minute, Gary. David Kardashian.
David Koresh.
Koresh, that, you want to believe, but later on in life, once the evidence came out and we analyzed it, I analyzed it during my master's degree. We did it in a course. And I remember going, wow. That was evil. That was bad.
Yeah. Again, wildly excessive use of force, wildly excessive. We don't like wildly excessive use of force when it's against African Americans. We don't like it when it's against people worshiping God. And even if they're worshiping God in a way that we think is particularly unappealing, we don't want them being killed over it. And what's going on here? Why are we allowing that to happen? Well,
Ben,
where is Mr. Biden on this? Sorry.
These aren't local offices that dictate this. This comes from DC down, because you can't do any of these operations without approval from headquarters. So this stuff, these marching orders are coming from bureaucrats and the heads of these agencies who are empty suits and bureaucrats. Like we always said, shit floats to the top in the government. And I kid you not, these marching orders are coming from politicians. I mean, that's where this stuff's coming from. Not no local office or no local ASAC or special agent in charge is going to be able to run any of these operations like this without approval or marching orders from the bigwigs. So them denying that they don't know anything, like the Fast and Furious and all that, complete and utter bullshit. They know, because they more than likely gave the order. I know this firsthand. I worked in it. You just don't, I couldn't go out and just execute a search warrant and just go out on my own and do whatever the hell I wanted. It had to be approved by headquarters. Even for me in a local office, headquarters had to give their approval before I did anything. And I actually had to tell them in a proper procedure, everything that I was going to do, all my paperwork, everything. So anyone who thinks this is a bunch of rogue agents or anything like that, no way.
Yeah, like Peter Strzok, for example. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, Ramsey, please.
Yeah, so I mean, Peter Strzok from the FBI is a prime example. He ends up getting a book deal. I mean, he's being offered to teach classes at George Washington, and he's a man who basically said he's going to use everything within his power as a special agent to, use all the authority given to him by Robert Mueller to try and sway the impeachment and the investigation into the whole Russia hoax to go ahead and remove the president. And he did so with everything being approved by the higher-ups, Comey and everyone. Like, all of this had to have been approved. And I mean, I'm not a big Marco Rubio fan, but Marco Rubio says a quote that I often think of often, which is, these people do it intentionally. We have to think that they're not doing this intentionally. They know what they're doing, and they're doing it because they want to.
Yeah, they want to scare us. I mean, as I was walking through the airport at Charlotte yesterday, I thought, we live in this is the best country in the world. It's absolutely heaven in most regards, just heaven. But we live in a republic of fear, which we have never had before in this country, at least not since the Civil War. A republic of fear. And somehow that got sneaked through under the guise of combating racism. It was all nonsense. At one point, there was very terrible racism in this country, just awful. But that has been untrue for a very long time. But they're still playing on that. They're still playing on that to take away the freedoms of decent people. It's a scary thing. It's a very scary thing. And to whip up race hatred in America, it's no joke. These things start small, and they can get to be very big, very fast.
And I'll end it with this on this segment. It's you have Republicans being on Hannity for 3 years, swearing that they're going to do investigation after investigation after investigation and do absolute jack shit. And excuse my language, it's frustrating. It's aggravating that you have top leaders in the Republican Party promising prosecutions are going to come. You have John Solomon riling people up, and nothing ever happens. And until Republicans learn how to fight fire with fire, we are screwed right now. And on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. Remzo, please tell people where they could find us.
Go ahead and hit that subscribe bell so that way you always get an alert whenever we go live or upload new content. You can go ahead and find our new channel over on Rumble. That's The World According to Ben Stein on Rumble. And please, if you can't go ahead and be here live and enjoy the video version of the show, you can catch us a day later and $1 short, but always awesome on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever podcasts are available. And please, if you enjoy the content here and the information we're spewing out at you 3 days a week, go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating and review. We do read those.
God, I missed you, Remzo. Welcome back to The World According to Ben Stein. Gary, I saw you shaking your head for a second.
Well, no, remember this name, Trey Gowdy, that human ass clown? You know, he promised investigation after investigation. I always would get asked this, what frustrates you the most? And I go, these congressional inquiries are pure theater. These guys will not go after each other. They're all getting rich off it, Republicans and Democrats. No one's going to upset the apple cart, because if they do, they're going to screw up the money train. And Trey Gowdy used to bark all the time. And I could tell the guy didn't know anything about doing an investigation. The guy was clueless, complete clueless. What's he do now? Oh, he's a talking head for Fox.
He's what? I'm sorry, say it again.
He's a talking head for Fox. And if you, and by the way, if you do watch Forensic Files, which has been one of our favorite shows, I think Trey Gowdy made 6 appearances on that show.
I know. I know he hasn't been quite as much on follow through as some of us might have liked, but he was very, very good during some of the hearings. And I still like it. And we're again facing this problem, as my mother used to say, the best is the enemy of the good. We're not going to get the best. There was one best guy in terms of pursuing the enemies of the Constitution, and that was McCarthy. And his name just became, it was just soiled and made into a synonym for everything awful, which he should not have been.
Well, the left has a million McCarthys, but I want to get to something that's frightening. And we knew that this was coming, and this was trending on Twitter, and that Twitter allowed it after the incoherent, and I'm being nice when I say that, the rumblings of whatever his name is that's in the White House right now, gave that speech yesterday, and Tim Scott gave the rebuttal, was trending on Twitter, was Uncle Tim.
I know, shocking, disgraceful. That would never have been permitted in a more decent world. But we don't live in a more decent world. We live in a world where people are angry and crazed. And I always say to people, it's going to take action, and prayer. And we talked before I went off to South Carolina about walking around in front of the Beverly Hills police station with placards saying we support the police. And I'm happy to do that. I'm a very poor artist, but if someone who's a better artist wants to do that, that's fine. I thought in the meantime, we should just go in there and say, we love you guys and we're proud of the work you do. But let's not forget that each policeman, each policewoman is a person. He or she has a home to go back to, friends, family. They don't want to go back feeling that they're hated.
I believe 3 were killed today. I believe 3 were assassinated today. Three police officers were ambushed and assassinated.
Where was this?
I have to look it up. If somebody in the chat room could tell me where that happened, but I believe 2 or 3 officers were shot.
It's happening too much.
Were shot to death. And the other day, this is not ironic, an African-American woman was doing a podcast, and the last words she said on the podcast were "fuck the police," and she was drunk, and she ran over a New York City police officer and killed him.
Oh my God, I can't believe this. What was that woman's name?
People in the chat room could look that up. But Gary, I want to get back to this thing where that this is allowed, that he could be called, and you knew it was coming, but that Twitter allowed this Uncle Tim to trend. And again, we know we're never going to ask for fairness, and we're never going to get a fair shake in these worlds. But how do they, MSNBC, the shit and hate that they were spewing towards Tim Scott is an embarrassment.
It's an embarrassment for the whole country. Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, Gary. I beg your pardon.
Oh, well, no, it's racism. And that's the part that I get really frustrated with. You know, like I said, you call me Switzerland, but I'm not. I'm a more conservative thought process. I was in the government, I was in law enforcement, so I tend to lean a little more right. But I have left views as well. But the problem I have is the left plays by different rules. Their attitude is by different rules,
right?
And their attitude is it's not racism if they say it. It's totally okay. Or if a black person calls another person a racist term or name, long as they're on the left, it's totally okay.
Right. And this is typical of leftist thinking, typical of dictatorial thinking. And the Fuhrer said it very well. If I say it, that's the law. I mean, that's the law. There's a wonderful movie, strongly recommend that all of you watch it, called Downfall, about the last days of Adolf Hitler in the bunker in 1945. And at one point, his girlfriend's brother says, you've got to persuade him to leave. And if he doesn't want to leave, you've got to leave yourself because you're all going to die. And she says, I wish I spoke German, but I don't. She says, but he's the Fuhrer. You say what he says goes. And that's the way it is now. If the left and the leading spokesman of the left, especially if they're from the Washington Post or the New York Times, say it, then it has to be true.
So Ben, just so
they say it, it's true.
You're 100% right. So it was Watauga County, North Carolina. 2 deputies were killed and 3 other people, including the gunman, were found dead after a 13-hour standoff. So there you are. No news, no lowering of the flags. But Remzo, let's get back to this. And I go to you because I know you've shared on the show before intimately how you've faced racism, and it was very difficult to hear when you shared that. But this Tim Scott thing, calling him Uncle Tim, it's just heartbreaking. Every time there's a Tim Scott or a Leo Tyrell or a Larry Elder, and they have a differing point of view, it's frightening what the media and the left is able to get away with, Remzo, under the guise of, I don't even know what the guise is. I don't get it.
They don't need a guise. If they say it, it goes, it's der Fuhrer.
Remzo.
Yeah, I don't have a doctorate or a master's in this, but I do have a bachelor's in political science, U.S. government politics and policy from Liberty University. And then recently I actually went through some of my old notes as I was clearing out some stuff to throw away, and I actually looked at them, and I don't remember what the class was specifically, but we were talking about absolute warfare. And specifically, the example was what William Tecumseh Sherman did as he was going and blazing a trail through the South. I mean, it was
Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, what he was absolutely doing was total war. And he went ahead and wrote, I think, a letter, actually, to Robert E. Lee at one point, and he was like, listen, man, like, I don't want to do this, but this is what I have to do, and I will go ahead and destroy everything in front of me to get what I need to get done, because as much as I hate war, I'm willing to play to win. And that made me think of one of my favorite movies, actually. It's Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, which is a Batman film, but it's actually a really good example of postmodernism and relativist philosophy in a post 9/11 era. It was almost a post 9/11 film to a large degree. And there's a scene at the very end of the film where Batman has captured the Joker, and the Joker is taunting him. He's like, you think you can go ahead and put me in jail this one time? I'm just going to go out and I'm going to kill more children and I'm going to kill more cops. And that's the difference between you and I, because your moral code is going to stop you from killing me. And I'm going to make you think that you killed all those people because says, I'm going to get out and I'm just going to kill and kill and kill. And Batman walks away because Batman will not kill the Joker, because Batman is not a killer. Batman is not judge, jury, and executioner. And I think that's the big difference right now. And it's not a political divide. It's a divide amongst mindset. It's of people who are willing.
It's a what divide, Remzo?
It's a divide amongst mindset. It's not a political divide, because you have
a moral divide.
Yeah, because you have half these people who see this as absolute warfare. They're willing to do anything and everything to achieve their means. And then you have the others who are like Batman, who are held back by their own sense of morality. They're not willing to go that
That's
far.
a brilliant analogy. That is absolutely a brilliant analogy, Remzo. And I go to you, Ben Stein, and I say, why are we not the fighters that they are? Why do we feel like that we need to take some sort of moral high ground?
I think some of it is explained, I hate to say this, by ethnicity. Some people are just ethnically more angry than other people. I mean, I know
Ben, this isn't Ben. These are white reporters on MSNBC.
Sure, I'm not referring to black versus white, as you well know, as you know me so well know. I'm not referring to black versus white. Some of it is just the fact that angry people choose a cause which espouses the materializing of anger. I mean, what is communism but the materializing of anger, rage, jealousy, and envy? It's rolling it up into a big bundle and calling it a socially uplifting policy, when instead it's a policy about rationalizing murder.
That's a great
National
point.
Socialism. It was not about eugenics. They said it was. It was really a policy of rationalizing murder. So I'm afraid we have some very, very sick people, spiritually sick, as we in AA say, spiritually sick, and they cloak their spiritual sickness in the language of spiritual goodness, and it's some people bite and some people don't.
See, and I got to be honest, and just so everybody out there knows, Ben Stein is a man that you're an honorable man.
God bless you.
No, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I want to tell people a story, and we live in Hollywood, and in Hollywood, everybody's always scared. They're scared that somebody's going to steal their idea. They do, right, because they do. They're scared that somebody's going to snake them for their idea, or if you're the bigger name, whatever. And a couple of years ago, Ben and myself,
Ben and I, of course.
Thank you, Mrs. Levin. Went to pitch a show to Westwood One. They wanted us to do a podcast, and we were sitting in the room, and they kept on looking at Ben, and Ben basically said, "You realize I'm not going to do this without him." And
what I'm saying?
When you said, I'm not, Judas part of the package. This isn't like and there was no point of me. There was no point in me. There was no thought that I ever had that you were going to snake me. I could have been with 1,000 other people scared to death, but with Ben Stein, I knew that we were a tandem package. And I got to tell you, in the world, that is extremely hard to find. And the reason I bring that up is, you have people on MSNBC like Nicole Wallace, who used to work for George Bush, and who is just spewing Gary Collins, this utter hatred and nonsense. And do anybody confront them? I want to know, is somebody on the street going to walk up to these people and say, "Are you out of your freaking minds?"
I had friends at the White House staff when I was working for Mr. Nixon, who did have moral principles. The ones in fact, almost all of them did. The ones who I think of most intently are a guy named John R. Coyne, and a fellow named R.M. Bakshin. They were incredibly wonderful, brave people who stood up for the things they believed in. And if I may say so, my father, God bless his soul, God rest his soul, has been gone now for, I'm sorry to say, 22 years. When he was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, there was a person who unequivocally was not hiring a certain economist as a researcher, unequivocally was not hiring him because he was black. And my father said, "You just can't do that. I'm going to resign if you don't do it. You have to hire him if he's the most qualified. You don't have to hire him because he's black, but if he is the most qualified, you have to hire him." And it went all the way up to Mr. Nixon. And Mr. Nixon said, of course, we cannot deny this man a job if he's black. It's not even to be considered.
So my question to you, Gary Collins and Remzo, is why are we such pacifists? Why are we not storming? Yeah.
No, what we're seeing, it's very typical. They've been following Salinsky's rules for radicals for decades, since the 60s. What they're doing is they know that we will follow our own rules. So they use our own rules against us. That's one of his doctrines. Make them follow their own rules. So what they know is that we have a moral conscience. So they're using our moral conscience against us. They know we will not cross lines. So they keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. And I've always said, and people have heard me talk about this, and this isn't puffing my chest out or saying anything. I know the people I worked with in my life. I know the people I surround myself with. They push too far, and it's not going to go very well for them. I'll leave it at that. It's going to be bad news for them. But they're pushing and pushing because they want that overflow. They want that to happen. And luckily, we're good people. We're nice people. We believe in loving each other. And a lot of us were in the military and law enforcement. And we see the evil side of what evil people do. And we don't want to go there because once you go there, you can't go back. It's simple. They know that we won't cross the same lines.
They assume that we're civilized. And there's going to come a point where people, and I got to be honest with you, there are some people, Ben, if I met them, I'd have a very hard time being civilized. And I know you have the Sharpton rule that you will bail me out. You'll bail me out, but there are certain other people. But Remzo, I go back to you. How do you stay civil? I mean, it's really getting difficult to be civil.
I'm so happy I get to talk about Batman so much tonight. Going back to The Dark Knight, which is a film that means so much regardless of what it is. There's a scene where everyone has to get out of Gotham City, and you have two boats. You have a boat full of hospital patients that's going across the river, and you've got another boat from inmates from Arkham Asylum, criminals, rapists, muggers, everybody. And what the Joker has done is he's planted two bombs on each ship. Now, each ship has one person that has the button that will blow up the other ship. So the convict ship can blow up the hospital ship, and the hospital ship can blow up the convict ship. And the Joker tells them over a radio, the only way one of you is going to live is if you kill the other. So what ends up happening is everyone on the hospital ship keeps saying, those people are criminals. They've committed their acts of evil. We should not care because they're evil people. And then you have this guy, he's a big tattooed giant thug. He goes over to the guy with the remote and he says, you don't have the balls to do what needs to be done. I'll do it. So what ends up happening? Everyone thinks that the hospital ship is going to blow up the convict ship and that the convict ship is going to blow up the hospital ship. So what the convict does is he takes the button and he throws it out the window. And as both ships go to the other side, Batman looks at the Joker and he says, you lost. You couldn't make them kill each other. That is the big difficult choice that we have in society, because we don't know what the other side is thinking at the end of the day. And the moment we make that decision, if the hospital ship had killed the ship full of criminals, what would have made them any different?
And officially, Remzo has a new nickname. It's Remzo the Bat Martinez. You've earned it tonight. And on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. We know Gary Collins has been keeping up with the Kardashians, and we know that Remzo Martinez is all things Batman. But Remzo, please tell people where they can find us.
Big takeaway tonight. Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher Play. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that way we can see the downloads, so you can get the show wherever you go. And please go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating and review. Ben reads them, Judah reads them, I read them. We always make sure to get back to you. So please, The World According to Ben Stein, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Rumble. Go ahead and check out The World According to Ben Stein on Rumble tonight.
Welcome everybody back to The World According to Ben Stein. We're joined tonight by thesimplelife.com. SimpleLifeNow.com. What?
SimpleLifeNow.com.
TheSimpleLifeNow.com. Gary Collins. And of course, Remzo Martinez, who's got a great podcast about comics and stuff On the Run with Remzo Martinez, and of course, Ben Stein. You can find him on Parler at Ben Stein. I want to do a little new segment tonight. I want to call it, instead of Trivial Pursuit, it's going to be Trivia Stein, Trivial Ben. And people always have questions for Ben. I know Gary has questions for Ben. Somebody in the chat room asked Ben, "Are you a Keynesian?"
Keynesian.
I'm sorry.
Yes, very large, not entirely, but very largely. Yes.
And I know people have questions for you that are trivia based, and I know. So I will let Gary go with the first question.
I got a good one for you, Ben. What is the biggest obstacle, and why will they not incorporate a flat tax?
Because it's highly regressive to charge the same rate to very unwealthy people as to wealthy people. The idea, I think, has been built through consensus over many decades that we want to tax rich people at a higher rate than poor people or middle-class people because they can afford it. If they lose a certain amount of money, it doesn't in any sense affect their way of life. I mean, spending money only affects your way of life if it deprives you of something. At one point in my life, long ago, I earned a very substantial living, at least by my modest standards. And so basically nothing I did had any cost because it didn't keep me from doing anything else. But the same is true of taxation. If you have a very wealthy person, it doesn't really matter what his or her tax is. It doesn't really cost them anything. It doesn't keep them from getting anything. So I think the idea is we want to be able to live the way they want to live without regard to their tax bracket, and that's it seems to be perfectly legitimate. And I should say without regard to their income, there's no reason a very rich person should pay the same low rate on each dollar earned as a middle class or lower middle class person.
Okay, so I have a question. Oh, sorry, Gary. Follow up.
Follow up. Would you be in favor of a tiered system then, like 10, 15, 25%?
Well, I think that's not exactly, but largely what we have now. I mean, we have a system which is progressive. It's nowhere near as steeply progressive as it was when I was a child, but it's progressive. But I have no problem whatsoever with a tiered system as long as it adheres to the basic principle that we do not want to deprive people of whatever they need to live in a way that is comfortable and allows them to take care of their families.
Okay, so Ben, I have a question for you, and thank you for the great answer. And then I'll get to Remzo and back to Gary. So they keep on saying inflation we're not at risk for inflation, but yet we see on products inflation. So how do you, I don't understand what's the difference really. If we're seeing it on things we buy, inflation, I think you understand what I'm asking you.
I understand. Well, the answer to that, as I often say to you, my dear friend Judah, is one is data and one is anecdote. I mean, I do all the shopping for the Stein family, my own little family, although it actually includes an awful lot of people who are not related to me, but they might as well be related to me. And I do notice very distinctly that the prices of things I buy are going up, I think, at a breathtakingly rapid rate. So, but the data is quite the contrary. And this was true during the Nixon Ford days when I was at the White House and my sainted father was there, and people would ask him the same question. And he would say, well, you can hold up a pot roast. You can say, I paid $2 a pound less for it a year ago. And I will say, yeah, but then there's some other thing that's whose price is altered, so it's offset that price. So we do have an awful lot of gathering of data, and the gathering of data is at least quite clear to me that there hasn't been much inflation. That's one of the great mysteries of economics. Economics is an art and not really a science, and we just don't know why there's not been more inflation. There should have been. There's been an incredible amount of money created, which is the usual determinant of how much inflation there will be. But it doesn't seem to be this time around, and we don't know why.
That should be, by the way, it's an art, not a science. That should be called the Paul Krugman law.
Well, he's something else entirely. I have to say, I used to be on TV with him a great deal. and he's a perfectly nice guy. But really, it's hard to believe that a person could be so consistently wrong.
Okay, before I get to Remza, somebody asked, obviously, other than Ferris, what was your favorite movie, television show, or book or commercial that you worked on?
Well, by far, the Wonder Years. I loved the Wonder Years a really, really lot. And also, what did you say?
I said I totally forgot you were in that one.
Yeah, I was a continuing character in that. And I also loved, of course, my show, one might say, Win Ben Stein's Money. I loved that a great deal. Really, really, really loved that a lot. Except when I lost, I was the only person ever who was the host of a game show who had to pay out his own money when he lost. Nobody else has ever had to do that. And it was a highly motivational part of my life. And I would get very, very upset when I lost. And a very smart friend of mine said, Ben, it's not a moral issue. And that helped me a lot. And by the way, an awful lot of life that we think is terribly important is not a moral issue.
What about the Clear Eyes?
I love Clear Eyes, except that one day they made me sit on a chair that was attached to a big, tall board. And then they pressed a button and the chair collapsed under me and I was dropped into a big, huge barrel of water. And it was, even though I was game, because I was being paid well for it, that made me game, I didn't like it. It was kind of creepy to be suddenly have the bottom pulled out from under me, so to speak.
But I think the Alaska fisherman commercial was worse.
Oh my God. That was terrifying. That was when I was a spokesman of the Alaska Seafood Fisheries Council or Commission or whatever it's called. And they had me on a raft off the coast of Alaska, and some giant iceberg was, as they call them, calving, however it's pronounced. And I was throwing enormous, gigantic chunks of ice in the ocean that made the ocean rise and fall. And I was on this little dinky raft. And if it threw me into the ocean, I would die of hypothermia in 30 seconds. I was really, really scared. And they said to me, well, do you want to stop doing it? You bet I want to stop doing it. And we did. We did it inside on a platform that had springs on it. And in the background, they had something that looked like a water, like a scary water thing. That was really, really scary. I didn't like that at all. But that was great. It was all great. Every dollar you make acting is a great dollar.
Okay, Remzo the Bat, you're up next for Trivial Ben.
And a lot of really, really, really weird things have happened over the past year, so I'm curious to know about this one. This might be the most important question of the night. Do you believe in aliens?
You mean alien immigrants or aliens from outer space?
Aliens from outer space, extraterrestrial life.
I guess I believe there's extraterrestrial life, whether it is on two legs and can get up and walk around and talk and play chess. I don't know, but where there are microbes and so forth, I would guess that there are, but it would be entirely a guess, and I could be totally wrong. The universe is quite indifferent to the fate of man.
But but we do have two friends who do believe in them heavily. One a frequent guest on the show, Larry Klayman, who's a huge believer in them. So we don't ostracize people that do, Remzo. We don't
ostracize anyone who disagrees with us, and we don't hold grudges. Yeah. I have a number of people in this world who have been very mean to me and even sadistic, and I do not hold grudges. I learned that from my wife, the absolutely finest human being on the planet by far, and a literal goddess, an actual goddess. And I learned that from her. Don't hold grudges.
Okay, Gary, I'll give you one more.
Oh, gosh, another one. Oh, gosh. What would be a show? I forgot about the Wonder Years. Golly. What would be a show or something you did that most people don't know about?
I'm not sure most people know that I was in an episode of MacGyver, it's not a comedy episode, where I played an FBI agent. I was chasing a plane down a runway, firing a revolver at a plane as it was taking off. And That's pretty much all I did in that episode. The main thing I remember is I had to get up very early in the morning and drive up to the vicinity of Magic Mountain. And I thought to myself as I was doing that was in the days before I had a driver. And I thought, oh my God, this is insane. I'm going to fall asleep at the wheel. And I didn't, and it was fine. But I hardly regret anything that I ever did as an actor. As a writer, I was treated very, very badly on many occasions. Very, very badly. The writer in Hollywood is generally treated like dirt. And
so my last question to you would be this: as you were doing these shows, as you were doing an episode, I think you did of Seinfeld, maybe you did the Family, you did the Family Guy. As you were doing all these different things, were you realizing at the time? Because most people don't realize when they're in the middle of doing something how special something is. And that how lucky you were to get away, in a sense, that most people that are economists that were speechwriters don't live that life.
I was incredibly conscious of it and incredibly happy and grateful to the Lord God Jehovah, Lord of hosts, that I was able to do that and to escape from the bureaucracy and escape from filing papers and reading documents. I actually like reading documents, but able to escape from being in the bureaucracy and go out into the real world and be in front of cameras. And that was I was deeply, deeply grateful, especially to John Hughes, who really changed my life in a big way, and to Al Burton, probably the most kind, wonderful person besides my wife I've ever met.
And to wrap up the show, Ben, this is Ben's autobiography. Ben has had tons of dogs, a lot of them German short-haired pointers. He has a dog in his room that's stuffed, that some people don't know, and it took me about 15 years to get used to the stuffed dog. They still do have 3 cats. Ben's debating getting another dog. Am I saying that correctly, Ben?
I would very much like to get another dog. I haven't gotten my wife on board with it, but I love dogs, especially German short-haired pointers and Weimaraners. I can't even describe to you how much I love German short-haired pointers and Weimaraners. They're incredibly fine dogs. They're just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful dogs. I love them, love them, love them.
I want to say there's at least 15 urns of animals.
Dogs and cats. We had cremated and then kept in urns in front of our fireplace in the living room.
Yes. On that note, I mean, I had a wonderful time tonight. I want to thank Rock Breath, who's been a great friend to the show and a great friend to me. Him and his wife Jeannie, they're my sounding board for a lot of things, and it's greatly appreciated. Rock Breath, you are fantastic. I want to thank all the people that are listening in the chat. I love your comments. We love everything about you. Through rough times, this brings us joy. I look forward to this. I look forward to what you have to say. I look forward to Gary Collins. I love that I've become a friend of yours. I love that I've become a friend of Remzo's. And I mean this. It's an honor and a privilege that I get to do this, that we get to do this. Remzo, you could find Gary Collins. People, please tell people where they can find you, Gary.
thesimplelifenow.com. Check out my podcast, The Simple Life with Gary Collins. It's great, I promise.
You're not missing out. Remzo?
You can find my show twice a week, every Monday and Thursday, On the Run with Remzo W. Martinez, available wherever podcasts are. And if you like the Batman talk, I do another show with my good friend Mark Claire called the Second Print Comics Podcast, bringing you an hour and a half to 2 hours of comic book and movie news every Wednesday.
And of course, you could find Ben Stein on Parler at Ben Stein, spectator.org. He wrote a brilliant piece today. Where's that brilliant piece going to be coming out? Is that Newsmax or Spectator?
That will be, I've forgotten now, to tell you the truth. I think it's Newsmax.
It's a brilliant piece. Go to Newsmax when it comes out, but go to spectator.org. And if you have a few extra shekel, donate some money to them. They could always use it. They are a legacy. They are a legendary publication.
They're wonderful people.
And they're wonderful people. Please donate. And on that note, I want to thank everybody for listening to The World According to Ben Stein. We'll see you again Saturday night. Have a great couple days. But Ben, take us out.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, but I really must say good night, sweetheart. Good night.